US President Joe Biden will send 20 million additional COVID-19 vaccine doses to other countries by the end of June. Now, this is the first time when the United States will be sharing vaccines authorized for domestic use. US will be sharing doses of Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna and Johnson Johnson vaccines. This is on top of the 60 million vaccine doses of AstraZeneca that the US has decided to share with other countries. AstraZeneca vaccine, remember, has not been authorized for use in the United States.
We'll share these vaccines in the service of ending the pandemic everywhere. And we will not use our vaccines to secure favors from other countries. We'll work with COVAX, the international organization set up, and other partners to ensure that the vaccines are delivered in a way that is equitable and that follows the science and the public health data. Today's announcement to share 80 million doses is our next step as we ramp up the efforts to respond to COVID-19 around the world.
The United States will send 20 million doses authorized for use in the United States to help countries battling the pandemic by the end of June. This is in addition to sending all of the manufactured AstraZeneca vaccine doses overseas during May and June as soon as these 60 million doses are cleared. So that is a total of 80 million doses, and this is the most doses donated by any country in the world by 5 times. So we are waiting for, of course, AstraZeneca, as you know, to go through the approval process of the FDA, but this will put 80 million doses out into the world by the end of June.
The Biden administration is yet to announce how the vaccine doses will be shared and which countries will receive them. The U.S. has administered more than 272 million COVID-19 vaccine doses so far. Nearly 60% of all adults, that is 157 million Americans, have received at least one vaccine dose. 123 million Americans are in fact fully vaccinated. Biden has been facing rising global pressure to share vaccine shots as the country has been sitting on enough doses to inoculate the entire population twice. This as developing countries like Brazil and India are dealing with a massive shortage of vaccine doses. So far, the US has shared about 4.5 million doses of AstraZeneca vaccine with Canada and Mexico. The country has also supported the initiative to waive vaccine patents. Now it aims to help more developing countries receive vaccines by ramping up domestic production. Joining us on this broadcast now is WION correspondent Nick Harper. He joins us for more details on this. Nick, this is a shift from the US policy that we have seen so far. The US policy has been to get enough doses to vaccinate the entire adult population. Now the US is looking at sharing these additional doses with other countries.
Yeah, it's certainly a big step from the Biden administration, something that we haven't seen to date. For the first time, deciding that it's going to give away 20 million doses that have been approved for use here in the United States. Now, the Biden administration, of course, is saying that this is a good thing, the US being benevolent, handing out these doses around the world, although, like you mentioned, it's not clear yet exactly how they'll allocate them to different countries. But there are many countries looking at the US and saying that 20 million quite simply isn't enough, on top of that 60 million that they've also promised. These vaccines won't be immediately available. The 20 million will happen at some point before the end of June. The extra 60 million, the AstraZeneca ones, by July the 4th. And many say that it is quite simply just a drop in the ocean. If you bear in mind that 20 million, if all of them were to go to India, it would account for less than 1% of India's population. So there are people who are looking at this in other countries who are saying, look, it's good news that the US is doing it, but they need to step up even more. In the last few days, we've seen the World Health Organization essentially call out the United States for its planned vaccination of adolescents. As of Thursday last week, the US started vaccinating 12 to 15-year-olds, something that it hadn't done so far. But Dr. Tedros, the head of the WHO, said that instead, countries like the United States, rather than vaccinating their adolescents, should gather up all of those doses and send them around the world to countries like India, to Brazil, who are really struggling, who need the doses. So look, yes, it is good news, but many countries are looking at the US and saying America needs to step up to do even more in the global fight against the pandemic.
Nick, you said it right. America needs to do more to lead the global fight against this pandemic. But US deaths from COVID-19 last week fell to their lowest in nearly 14 months. To at least US has emerged as a case study that vaccines actually work, and it's the best weapon that we have against the pandemic.
Absolutely, and the US, perhaps surprisingly, has done very well in the last few months with that rollout. If you think at the end of the Trump presidency, towards the end of January the 20th, when Joe Biden came into office, the US was still struggling. There were still many deaths, many cases on a weekly basis, and they were struggling with the whole logistical rollout of how to get shots into people's arms. That has changed very quickly in the space of just a few short months, and we have seen many more people, into the millions, hundreds of millions, getting vaccinated. But we're now at this stage where there is a slowing vaccination rate, now at the slowest rate that we've seen so far. So the US has vaccines. They are free for people to come and get them as they will want to, but there is a proportion of Americans who are deciding quite simply not to get vaccinated. So we have this strange situation that the vaccines are available, they're free of charge, but they're also being offered with incentives, bizarre schemes like free beers, the opportunity to win $1 million if you get vaccinated, quite simply to try and convince people who are unconvinced about getting a shot to get vaccinated. And I think there is this optics here of the rest of the world in need of vaccines, looking at the United States, looking at these Americans who are choosing not to get vaccinated, although they easily can do,
Absolutely.
And wondering why there is this situation when there are these vaccines which are in ready supply, but quite simply not being used here in the United States.
Nick Harper, thank you so much for joining us with the latest. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.